So let's center in to our practice, and we're going to start with alignment of the props behind us. So we've got a rolled up blanket. The bolster is tipped up so it's spine wise, and then a blanket is on top. Now I want you to have the blocks set so they're besides the mat to begin, but they're going to be support for our hips. So this is considered upper respiratory. It's also considered a hip kind of base layer. So when you slide your blocks in underneath your legs, can you place your feet so they're relaxed together and get a belt? Hopefully you have a belt nearby, and if it's buckled up, that's really nice because you can go ahead and start to make that loop. But you want to have your belt in a large enough loop so that you can take it over into across the top of your feet. And you find kind of that suitable crossing of the layer of the belt over the feet that feels like it's giving you some impulse to keep the feet together. It doesn't mean the soles of them are completely, mushed in. I find that the explanation of this pose where you kind of open the feet like a new book is usually, I always kind of collect that in my consciousness. So let the feet relax a bit. But the belt should be tight enough that it feels secure about the eyebrows of the buttocks. Get your ball nearby and your sand. And we're going to start with some lower core breathing. So we don't even need to identify specific musculature, but of course it's diaphragmatic breathing work. But I want you to let the sand be an option today. So if you feel like you want to get in touch with your breathing without that pressure, then don't use the sandbag. But if you want to try it, you might try it with the sand lengthwise from the heart to the belly. And that connectivity of the weight it's pretty balanced. It doesn't have to be perfect. Maybe some is kind of a little lower on the sandbag, but get a feel that you do feel it around the heart area, and then that it just gently slides down the weight. And if you talk while the sandbag is on, you can go ahead and talk if you feel like it. I can't hear you. Your abdomen, like the diaphragmatic movement is already occurring, you can feel the sandbag resistance. So take the time to make all these things the most comfortable. Maybe your blocks are feeling too much pressure in the skin, so you smooth that out. So maybe it's contoured. And then feel where the arms open, and there's this simple sensation of circulation in the chest. So can you find that place of openness, careful threading of your inhale? So as you breathe, the abdomen expands. It feels like it lifts. So the diaphragm, as it moves downwards, it actually is contracting. And as you exhale, it moves back, and you just simply feel that flowing motion of strengthening the lungs. So the sandbag provides a little more of that strength. But if you feel like it's like pressure on the heart, then you just take the sandbag off and continue with the breathing you choose. So let's take about 5 cycles of focused breath. Relax the face. See if you can divide the focus of your breathing into your body versus facial tightening or upper chest tension. Good. And feel where that flow of circulation expands. And listen to the breath. So feel the inhale and the exhale out through the mouth. Maybe even swallowing a couple times within the rounds of breath. Now observing the position of the hands. See if you can let them slide as distant as they can without causing imbalance in your shoulders, right? The very front point of the shoulder, more interior. But everything has an interior kind of opinion in your practice, like whether it likes the experience or it kind of tries to shift away. So, feel that extent of openness with the arms and the hands. And then continue with that abdominal motion with your breath. And feel if you can have as much grounding in your corridor, your central corridor. And as the arms lift up, can you let the elbows bend and they stretch back behind you, and feel the reach of the arms behind you, interlace at the roots of the fingers so the hands clutch together and the hands turn inside out, and you feel a sense of reaching with the arms. They move back, and of course there's segments of the arms that are a little more populated with energy. That's kind of how I feel with it. Some segments are kind of a full dose of blood flow. So we want to recruit those areas so that there is a nice amount of connection into your lungs. Okay, so feel where the arms are reaching, united at the hands. And then simple, we're going to move the hands apart. You can go quickly or slower and take the sand away. Unbuckle, very kind of focused on this balance sequence. Slide the belt off so it's no longer wrapped around the feet. And then as the knees start to point up, and they can sort of glide towards the feet about hips distance in the beginning, but at some point what you'll work towards is taking the feet to probably just hips distance is your best option for the hip. And feel if you can put your hands down, or feel the hands down besides the hips, palms down. And then as you push down into your left foot, you're going to lift up the right foot. And then feel if you can pivot at the very top of the thigh, kind of the thigh root, and lift the right foot and cross it to the left knee. And once you cross that, your left foot might squiggle in. Mine tends to just kind of do its own habit of, okay, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this. But feel if you can have your left foot, pretty much straight down parallel. And then you'll move your ball to the outer left upper thigh. So I try to kind of smush the ball in to that outer left thigh. It could be just where you feel the bones connect, and you can't really get the ball down the side of the leg because your butt leg is up. But it doesn't mean that when you lean your body weight into the ball that you can't move the ball lower. I find that I'm kind of staying with the elementary version of this over time. I'm still going to stay with that. So I avoid the block being in my way. And then I reach for the right knee with the left hand and try to stay with that clarity of your lower abdominal breathing. So we can get caught with trying to get into the pose and kind of show we got the pose, but the practice is, it's an actual experience from one shape into the next, kind of exploring the movement of breath, as simple as it can be. Maybe you just feel that simplicity. And if the ball seems like it's, not really holding you up, you can always bring it in a little bit higher to the outside of the hip. There's only so many places you can put the ball, because you can't really put it up on your waist because your legs would fall over. Heaven forbid, but you want to feel where that ball is, kind of holding so the hip frame is balanced. Now get a good grip on the right knee and feel that you're pulling it towards you, the right knee. Maybe going across has a little element of support. Okay, and get a good tug on that leg. Of course, you're going to respond to your body's experience. If it's too tight or you feel like, wow, that hip is really gripped up, what would be good for us is if we have this right hip getting kind of promoted right now, and then we'll shift away and put the ball under the right buttock. So think of it as glute massage. So I remove the ball now and then push down into both feet, lift up the hips. Now I know the blanket under your head causes a little bit more ease in your neck. But if you decide that you don't want that blanket under your head, the one on top of the bolster, you can always slide it away. Now put the ball so it's under the right buttock and massage side to side so you get a feeling of squishing and shifting. If you don't have a ball, you could windshield wiper the legs so the feet would be a little wider than hips distance and the legs would swing side to side with the feet on the ground. And you want to get a feel of just massaging around the area of your right hip that you're just stretching when you held your right knee. So getting the actual touch into there, using the ball as touch. You might let the body weight just sink into the ball and do very small motions side to side so you can feel where the hip could use that kind of rub, a little bit of a rub into the hip. Good. So movement or stillness. And then as you shift the side, I want you to get a feeling of awareness with that right foot. Comfortable, doesn't have to be pulled in towards your buttock, but feel where the foot is about parallel, left foot up, cross it to the right knee. And then the ball is on that outer upper right thigh. Be sure that when you tilt the body, the knees over to the right, that it's both knees, right? It's not just the one that's obviously right, but the left knee is angling towards the right side and you're holding onto the knee. And you want to provide a nice amount of pulling. Okay, so I'm trying to pull my leg, and if it doesn't feel supported right now, or if it is on edge, you don't want to torque the leg and pull it all the way to the right. You want to feel that it's supported by the hand and drawing towards you. So feel just that beginning. If you like to stretch your left arm back at the same time, it has a thread of movement into the ribs. Of course, everything's very simple here. We're restoring. I think sometimes those that are attracted to restorative are busy mind, busy peeps. So having this time about wanting to do more eccentric moves is almost feels like just sleepy time. But it is nourishing right into the joint. So you're trying to get that awareness of the heat into the hip, right? It's heat. So I think the stretch is probably partially a feeling of warmth when you're pulling it across, that sheer pull. Now, when we come away and we put the ball under that left buttock, feel, where did you get that stretch in the left hip? Try to go immediately to, it's usually going to be higher up on the back of the buttock. And so glute medius is likely going to be kneaded, K-N-E-A-D, kneaded, pressing. And if you feel that rolling action is just kind of therapeutic and nice and soothing, you don't have to puncture into the spot that was feeling tight. You don't have to overdo that. But get a feel. And one thing I think what we're going to sway into is our side stretching, so that the back of the pelvis doesn't have to have a harsh pressure to come out. So I want you to give a few more of these massage slides across that left buttock. Okay, the hip flexors are in a creased position. Okay, and then as we start to move the ball away, we'll do a little bit of a glute rock. So we come around, and I have to find my way to shift over easily and then come up. And I want you to feel, just push the blanket off the top, turn the bolster across, and then set your elbows back on the bolster. And just let the knees, so they swing a little side to side. So it's not a big deal, a big production of choreography here, but you'll feel the elbows back. And for me, my elbows kind of push up. Sorry, my shoulders push up. Those aren't my elbows. I don't think so. So you feel the knees shift side to side, and you might want to let your eyes close and notice the part of the rear that you were recently massaging. Right on each side you did. This is another way to do that glute massage too. I'm kind of low with my upper body tilted back, and sometimes this is taught with the hands on the floor, so it's a little bit of a higher position with the upper body. I just like to feel like I can kind of smush into it, right, and not tighten my shoulders anymore. Of course, you could do something like this flat on your back too. So you'll shift to the left hip. We'll all go to the left, so we're on the same side stream. We'll take the bolster close in, and I want you to unroll that bottom blanket, have two stacked, and they can be perfectly stacked. One could be kind of crossed over at the top, so you have a little bit more neck contour. Essentially, you could turn the blanket any which way that your neck likes. So you might really, really customize this one. Play with it. Put a block overhead over the other side of the blankets on the back area of your mat. And then you're going to position. I kind of noticed that when I slide down to the bolster, it pivots with my body because this isn't straight. You know, my left leg to my left rib cage is not a straight line. So you would just let your body, after you find where that sandbag went, to be releasing down into that bolster. And I want to find that my ball helps my leg be supported, my blanket stacked so my head can be on them. And with that sand, you could be down the side, right? You could stay across the hip. And you might even have some kind of blend that's to the right side of your abdomen, your obliques down to the side of the leg. That's kind of interesting. Not the most satisfying, but you want to find that there's some traction with the sandbag. Okay, so if you start with it low and then you decide after a few moments you want to bring the sandbag higher, then you can play with it. But as I reach overhead, I have my hand on a block. Not required. You can let your hand be opening towards the ceiling and flowing back and forth. But as the eyes are relaxing inwards, you know, get a feel, is that lower left arm kind of free to reach a little further, or is it restricted? So you want to feel that you can kind of rotate in the position. So this doesn't need to be just one variation in a side position. It could also influence your hip and the twist of the spine. Depends on how kind of flexible you are with your creativity and also less limits, right? So use props so you have less limitation in your range of motion. And letting the eyes really settle in. Feel the breath as it's moved from the front lower chamber. This is a little more like barrel breathing, right? Because you're working with the rib cage. Breathing slow, 4 count at the most, probably. Maybe it's 3 count for some. Exhaling for equal or longer. And continue to spend the awareness on, does my body feel too turned? Do I need to turn my head down a little bit so I'm comfortable? Right? I don't want you to feel like it's uncomfortable for your rib cage, or actually for your shoulders or your neck. So take a few more moments just noticing, is your head comfortable, your neck? And you might like to turn the chest open, but then is your neck tightening to do that? Good. So get a feel for what can settle into the pose. The left hip, plenty of focus. Okay, now we're going to keep the same layer, the same region of circulation in between the two sages. So we'll just go onto our back, and you might want to keep your blanket, like if you have it in this double fold at the top, you might like to just turn it so it's in the middle of your blanket that's on the base. And then see if you can flow just onto back, a ball between knees. So my rib cage is on the back posterior ribs is on the bolster, horizontal, and kind of smack in the middle of the bolster. This is very cozy. My blanket is pushed in. And so my neckline, I don't necessarily feel any difference from my upper back into my neck. It's all one flush line. Okay. Now, if you can scoot your feet close to your seat and then have the sandbag across the ribs. This is very important. So the sand is pretty high up. It's as high as you would ever put it onto your mid body or just your front body, so that you can comfortably breathe and perform the motions. But when the arms have that openness now with the bolster this way, it certainly kind of takes your breath away. If you get deep, steady breathing, and the abdominal breathing might be a bit of a challenge to even extend the movement down. Okay, so if you're kind of stuck in the upper lobes of the lungs, see if you can provide just fluid direction with your breath down front to the core basement. And let the belly be soft. So you're not trying to promote tension, gripping. It's kind of interesting that when you inhale, the diaphragm's contracting, right? So it might be a little bit of confusion what's going on with these breathing muscles, but the key would be to expand, relax through the abdomen. Diaphragm moves down, and then exhale. Everything centers towards the heart. Okay, now squeezing into the ball. That's the other layer, is to keep that lower base very anchored, right, and supportive of your movement in the breath. You can turn the toes in, or the foot in, not necessarily the toes. I don't know if I can turn each toe in a certain angle, but it's probably more of your foot is pivoting in. Okay, now before switching, I want you to really claim that bolster under your back so that you feel the arms are reaching behind you. You know how when you give a hug, it's forward. You don't give a hug this way. But for yourself, this is a good hug, right? For you to hug your shoulder blades back towards your spine. Okay, now come to the second side sage, or the side venting. You're going to let your body find its own manner of movement. So you can be creative and just challenge yourself a bit. You can feel yourself kind of roll to the right, maybe move your sand off immediately. And then get a feel. You probably need to move the ball a little bit. You can't necessarily get that to shift on its own. So I put it under just my left leg. And then as I come up to that bolster support, yeah, it might work out really interesting for you to stay with the same connectors with the props under your head, but the sand has a new side and this side probably has some differences, right? In response to the sandbag. So placing that support, and if you like to use the block overhead, find that, and you can go as high as you want with the block. It seems like it would be too high if you have it on the very top setting, but yeah, it feels pretty good in my shoulder. I find that I have to move it around and not spend energy on how it looks, but how it feels. And then you might end up not wanting to use it and flow the armpit chest open. You might even let your arm kind of relax down towards the right arm. And then experience the inhale. So the side ray, the side barrel of the ribs, right, is in expansion and contraction, which makes sense with the diaphragmatic breathing. It expands the ribs. Simplify versus be too dazed by the diaphragmatic focus, or if it's the right connection to the rib cage. Get that feel of that length with that left arm. And do your hips feel kind of fixed, right? So if you were to move your pelvis, like let's say you remember poses like rounding the back, arching the back, tilting. This is a fairly pressed in position for the pelvis, right? It's not like you can really wave it around. So you're using the position with the left leg to stretch the front of the thigh, the hip flexor, the quad. So I think this is an important one to feel, and you only want to go so far because of the knee joint, right? You don't want to push the leg all the way back behind you because then the knee would be in pain. So get a feel of that length through the side. This will be kind of interesting because this is the left side. I know that's obvious, but when we come up to sitting in a moment and go into the side reach, we're going to keep on this side. I'm going to try to keep things kind of just threading together, just the exact way that we're working moment to moment. Continue the thread. And then we'll end up in a nice little bow. Okay, and then unravel it. So unravel, rotate. Now it's tempting to go left because I know that would be the opportunity of a lifetime for my ribs, but to come out, you really do have to get your spine to flex. So you're going to move your block from overhead to the side. Then your sand, you're going to need it on the left side anyhow. And then as you curl in and you get your specs to see what's going on, you're going to come up and take a support underneath your seat. And if you don't like the blanket for your seated poses, some people like your bolster. Some people like blankets instead. Of course, I stayed with the same principle of the bolster. But if you want to try something different, you could pull in your blankets and push out your bolster and just see if it's better for you. So it will likely be more challenging. So when you stretch out the right leg, so you've got this left knee down, knee bending, it's pointed, of course, because it's a knee and it likes to point in this position, but the right leg is out, the left foot is tucked in, it doesn't have to touch anything, it doesn't have to touch the bolster or the right leg, but get a feel when you're here that you got this kind of V shape, right, with the knees, okay, pelvis centered, and then add a sandbag to the left thigh, top of it, upper, right, so it's a hip hugger, and then get a belt And I encourage you actually to probably put some under your left knee, whether it's a block or a ball or a blanket. The blankets for many of us, unless we're sitting on them, are behind us. And so take our belt and let's make a kind of a smallish loop. Okay, so you need your buckle to get all this together. So you got a loop. And when you connect, you want to get a feel for, and I suppose it doesn't have to be that small, but I want it to be long enough in all its entirety so that when you put it under your right foot and it goes behind your right hip and your left hand can get a hold of it. That's kind of the key. My left hand can hold my belt, right? So when I'm here, everybody's kind of getting there. It's in my way. So I want to have my arm so it's low enough. I mean, I could pull it up away from the blanket, but that could, you know, overstress my rotator cuff here. So I want to feel like this panel on the top is open. So if you're dissecting this, you want to see all of this. You're not going to do that actually, but you want this to open back, right? You need a tool to do this, I think. Okay, so keep that open. And then with that right hand, you're going to reach it to the left knee. Oh, that's too much stretch in my shoulder. So my right hand to the left knee, my hand on the belt is a little closer. For some of you, it might be far back, but I'm just going to keep it close. I've done this enough that I recognize that sometimes I feel this the next day too much. So you want to feel like it's stretching this chest. So let your eyes, if possible, close and feel how you turn through the waist. And you try to keep that right foot still pushing out to the right side. So it's about 1 or 2 o'clock on the right side. It's not at 3, that's for certain. But it is probably closer to, it's the 2. That's kind of your aim. So feel when you're revolving through the mid-body. And maybe you tilt your ear to the shoulder, either side. And be a little careful going to the right shoulder. That can be a lot of stretch with the neck. And then if you can just feel that brain on top, you probably feel mostly awareness in the neck versus that it's your brain. But feel when you use your right hand on that left leg to promote this upright shape. And then now I want you to bend the left elbow so you soften the hold on the belt. And then reach your right hand for the belt on the right leg like you're throwing a frisbee. You know, it's this kind of palm open. And so when you hold on to that belt on the right leg, you can let go of the belt with the left hand. You can let go. But you might stay because it's like once you got it connected, if you lose it, it's hard to get it back. But feel the connection of the layer on that left side of the waistline. And then when you pull on the right hand, you can turn your head and actually your whole neck to the left shoulder, turning your head towards the right leg. And just get that feel of circulation through this left quadrant of the waist. Now enjoy that it's like these side layers are feeling, this side, okay? And I know these connections are somewhat fluid, but we all have possibilities where we don't know where the connection is going, so we kind of, we hold and trap the tension to the area we're trying to loosen. So you might want to put your left hand and to let go of the belt to that left lower quadrant of the waist. And just kind of massage that area downwards, even using your thumb to that back area and just get that feeling of stretching. And it's a stretch, right? It's not like it's really purely massage. It's actually you're using the stretch to encourage that layer of reach through the back flesh, okay? Now, is it possible that when you let go of your belt, you come up and you try to get that left side of the waist, the back waist where your thumb is, or maybe not, but you're trying to sit upright. And I want you to flow to actually a pigeon pose. So you're going to probably rid of a blanket here. Pull a blanket in besides behind your bolster. Always a new experience for these classes. And so we were here, right? This was the length. Okay. So what you're going to feel here, you're in your belt, is that the right leg goes back. Okay, left knee is forward, so it was the left knee was bending anyway. And you're in pigeon with that left leg forward. So you're on the bolster. If you don't want to be in pigeon pose, you could be, I'll show you the modification in just a moment. So those in pigeon, you're going to be lowering down like so, and trying to get this left side of the waist to keep opening so you can walk your hands over to the right side. Does that make sense? So you're moving to the right with your hands, and you can put, that other, the blocks under your elbows, if it just feels like too low to go. If you still want to work with this hip opening, but you don't want to push your knee in this position of pigeon, this position, you can still do the same variation, but you're seated on your bolster, left leg crossed in front of the right, and you're going to take your blocks over to the right side, right? So you're still going to be working with this left hip in this left side. So you can still do it without pushing your knee down and pressing into pigeon. So this is a nice, I kind of like this one. I'm kind of swerving over to the right and left hip is active. Okay, they're both good. You don't have to add sand to the left thigh. You can if you want. That's kind of a bonus for the seated version, the upright. And those of us in the sleeping pigeon, we're back here with the right leg, but still, right? Arms are going to the right. Blocks probably have to be kind of low to hold your elbows. Okay, so give a few of these posterior breaths. So you feel the breath in your back. Get that feeling of movement through the back. Now we're going to come back to a table pose. So we'll move our blocks. Who knows, you might be needing them coming up. So keep them easy reach. Hands open, not just the hands, but the movement of the arms is wide. Now when you hook your toes under right foot, if you're in a seated forward fold, like not the pigeon pattern, then you want to come back with your legs to the back of the bolster behind you. So we're going to shift our legs back and just walk out your legs a little bit. Bicycle through the legs. Feels good in the calves to get that circulation and that rooting through the heels. So kind of get the movement of your foot. Toe, ball, heel. Many toes, ball, heel. Your feet may need to get a little wider. Not to worry if the knees are kind of shifting into the center, just get a feel of movement, alternating the knees. Yet if you feel kind of stuck, this is something to kind of recognize. Is it your hands, your wrists? Does it feel hurtful to put the pressure? So once you've found enough of that, because there will be a point your hands will have enough, you'll lower your knees and just move your bolster up. Okay, and have your blankie, if you need to reset it a little bit, so it's comfortable under your knees. I like to have it a quarter fold, some like to have it lower, flat. And then find that amount of reach on your bolster that's enough. And even if it's a wrist full of pressure, you might move your bolster a little closer. But feel where your back is extending all the way from the back of actually all the way from your legs, at the back of your legs. Mostly it's buttocks, probably up into your shoulders, huh? But as you feel that reach through the back, let your spine circulate forward to the brainstem, so it's a full reach of your spine. Kind of like your spine is a limb, right? Limb. It's a good thing to think of sometimes. Spine is a limb. Okay, slide the hands down. So you're going to keep your bolster here. I want you to keep it. And then take a step forward with your right foot between the hands. And I want you to try to use your bolster right now for your hands. Okay, so you're going to reach your hands on the bolster, toes under left foot. You can reach the lunge. I just want you to be careful you're not pushing your knee over your bolster or over even the toes. So you might have to push your bolster a bit forward so you have that opportunity. And then feel that left front thigh stretching. Okay, just let it be there. If this bolster's too low, it could be. You could put some blocks on top. I know it would be best if the blocks were under the bolster, be a little bit more smooth, but this is a good option. Toes under left foot, lift up the knee. If this is a real grit for you, just really tough to do it, then keep the knee down. Don't worry about it. You don't need to overdo it right now, but this is an opportunity to really get the flesh of that hip flexor flesh to reach. Okay. Now, as you lower down that back knee, if it's not already there, take a full moment here where you're arching a little through your spine. So that would mean you lift your head up. That could be all you do is lift your head up, looking forward, closing your eyes, feeling. I like the blocks under my hands. This is good. Okay, if you have another idea, you can share with the group for support under your hands. Take notes. Okay, now we're going to move into alternate. So the alternating pattern will be, we'll take a forward bend first. So the back foot, toes under, muster up a little focus of energy so you can actually get the back knee up, right? Without a lot of gritting and tensing. So feel the breath. Okay, feel if you can get the back leg to lift and then step it forward. Not that it's that easy, huh? And as you're here, you got all this support under you. So you might lower your head and still have your hands on your blocks, or maybe you didn't like the blocks enough and your hands are going to be on your bolster. But conveniently, when the feet are in a hips distance position, the sitting bones have that lift, so the head lowers down. Nod your head side to side. It's not necessarily just a side to side position with my neck, right? I'm kind of doing a little cylindrical work. So I'm kind of trying to move my head and get some sense of releasing in my neck. So for some of us, it'll be kind of nodding our head forward and back. Some it's going to be a little bit of like you're saying no with your gesture of your head. Okay. And then get a feel of bending your knees a lot. So really let your spine release. I know you'll feel it in your face, your skin cells of the face, your sinuses, everything kind of gets flushed around here. It'll get back to normal again, whatever normal is. And then take a big reach. I'm pretty far from my blanket with the right foot back. And then as I reach back, I guess I needed it back then. With the right foot back, now I'm going to lower down the right knee and then kind of keep that awareness of reaching forward with my lunge. So my left knee might be, just above my ankle and a tad bit over, but I certainly don't want it to go reaching over the toes. So the blocks might stop that pressure from happening. Okay, and then try to lift up your head, and your toes can stay under on the right foot. They can stay straight back. It has to be comfortable for your knee. For so many of us, it might be neither. It might be lift the back knee and try to reach through the heel a bit. It might be neither. Not even lifting your knee could work. So give a few moments here. The front of that right hip, if you're really kind of grunting through this one, to see if you can balance the weight into the hands. The blocks, I think, are really helpful for me because I need to put some energy into the arms so my legs don't have an unbearable experience. I can breathe. They can get pretty gripped up in the front, the quads. Okay, and so smooth it out. We're going to come back. Hallelujah. We're coming back to the hands, knees pattern. Turn the bolster so it's lengthwise right underneath you. And when you're here, let your back muscles articulate movements. I want you to get a feeling that you are really letting your back round and the spine is stretching from both ends and the arch is smooth. And it may not even feel like tension for you to alternate the back from flexing to arching. Just let it continue that movement. Your knees are apart. They don't have to be a perfect pattern, but you'll feel the movement of the waist. Take a few more of these alternating movements through the spine. Good. And then flush forward. So let the thighs lengthen. Right? So this is an upward facing dog pattern. And you can stay with this as long as the hands and the wrist, really the musculature that connects your lower arms can thrive. So if you feel like, oh, it's a pretty good hands, wrist stretch, you might stay with it this way. You might come down a little bit and turn the hands out, maybe a little bit broader, and then push to lift up. See where it meets your back and then lower down all the way. So all your body weight is out of your wrists and then elbows down in Sphinx position, and just let the hands be forward. Well, of course they're forward, but feel the fingers relax and the natural arch in the spine. Yeah, so you'll feel that maybe you can be in a very gentle back bend and strengthener without pain, right? So we want to find that we can do some of these patterns. It's just really good fundamental back care right here. Tummy time poses. So belly breathing. Now slide the hands back. Fingers really stretch open the hands. And then be very smooth when you come up. So we're going to take one more lunge set. They'll be like 30 seconds each though, so a little shorter. Knees together-ish. Step the left foot to the top left corner so the top of the right thigh stretches down. So about 8 breaths. Try to just calculate this one. So you're working on the front of that right thigh. If you like to push the bolster farther back under the top of the right thigh, you're welcome to do that. Okay, the belly is relaxed. Now shift back and change the step out with the right foot. Take the top of that left thigh, of course, whatever's there is going to lower to the bolster. It's kind of obvious, I suppose, but feel where the body can kind of surrender down. We're using props. It's pretty essential for this class. It's not possible to do it without props. So we're using something underneath us to support us. Bolsters are good. The more dense the bolster, the better, huh? And now get a feel where the circulation is, not just in the thigh, but also, well, it's actually front thigh, inner thigh. So now when you come out from this pose, if you need a few more seconds, stay. But I want to get us on the program here. So you're going to turn the bolster to horizontal across and walk your foot into right leg pigeon. So toe heel to the left. Okay. Now you know how to get to the pigeon pose. So those of you that are like, well, I'm not going to do that. Well, then you're still maybe going to move your foot over that direction. Right. So this is the pigeon to the left with our hands, and those that are seated cross-legged, same leg as the front leg, right? You just have to get the other leg behind it. And you can take your blocks over to the left, right? So it's kind of similar zone, but it's just maybe less pressure for some of us on our knee. Yeah. You may never have that experience with your knee where you can get into this shape and you haven't experienced knee discomfort in this pose, but plenty of people do. Okay. Plenty of people don't. And I don't think I've ever had discomfort in pigeon, but other knee stuff, yes. So you gotta kind of be very aware of yourself and self-study in the poses. Does it feel okay? Is it too harsh? So the hands are to the left. They can be down. Well, I'm still posing, your hands are down, elbows down. Blocks underneath if you need. So feeling where that right quadrant, lower quadrant of the waist feels the stretch. This feels good. Seems like I haven't done enough of this stuff for a bit. It's like you have to secure the time to do it sometimes. Breathing slow. Come up to meeting at the sitting level, right? So those that are in this forward prone level are going to come up and swing the left leg out. So we'll all kind of meet seated on the bolster and have your blankets probably two. I don't know if you need 2 blankets for this behind you. I don't think so, huh? So block or ball under the right knee, left leg is out, sand on the top of the right thigh. It's kind of fun to venture with these sequences and have target areas to loosen that are generally kind of hot spots of tension, or they feed out into them. So the waist can be one of those. It's definitely in the middle of things in your living experience. It's right in the center. So let me see if I can get this one figured out. Usually the belt twisted issues for me. I don't think that really matters, does it? Okay. So the belt goes to the back of that left hip. It's in a little loop under my left foot. I'm holding it with the right hand. And then I'm just going to turn. I think the simple rotation, it's like, but these twists, I mean, we're doing some real simplistic twisters here. But you want to kind of find what is underneath that twist for the barrel here, right? You've got these flaps of the waist, this left quadrant, left oblique. You're going to let that turn so you can use your hand, right, to give that awareness of movement. Left hand to the right knee. Got it. And then the right arm is, this side it might feel different. Like one of the arm knows exactly where to go, stretch. And one side might have a little bit of jumbled fibers. Jambalasana. So turning the waist. Feeling, does my neck turn? Do I shift my ear to my shoulder? Well, if it feels good, I don't think there's any harm with these mild neck tilts, but if it does hurt you, then don't do it. If you're better with more simplicity and nothing moving. Once that right arm feels some intensity, some heat, then I would let that be the time when you can reach with your left hand to the left leg to the belt on top. Hold on to that belt. I like the process of holding with both hands on the belt and then leaning. And I can't do as much leaning. And if I let go of the belt and flow the arm up, I can tilt further. But, you might like to have your right arm behind you and kind of massage that right lower side of the waist. So give it a little bit of focus. So last seated pose. So no big deal. You just want to let your body tilt to the left and feel where the waist is in extending length from that right side of your spine into the right side of the waistband, the posterior core. Breathe slow. I know now the diaphragmatic breath is kind of easy. You don't have to do a lot of energizing movements because it just happens. This is kind of a natural habitat for being mindless about it. But really, in the next few moments, when we get upside down, you'll have to tolerate a little study for yourself. So now a little bit of that massage with that right hand, it kind of scoops around the waist and just presses down with the thumb towards the back. Now try to use that as leverage to bring yourself up to sitting. So the hand is pressing down through that right side of the back, helping you come back up with your levers. And it's all about getting this leverage, right, through our body. So we take off the belt. This time, a little easier. We can move the sand right next to your bolster, so it's easy. And we'll move our blankie back. And as you unwind, we might do a little bit of chipotement with the legs, kind of shake them out and then tap them. That's the chipotement part. You can use your hands, the slapping pattern. You can use your fists. This is pretty good. I like the fists. And then get a feel when you move onto your back of this hip area on the side. So when you're here, you don't really feel that movement and stretch. But when you're on your back, it's different, right? You get the blanket under your head, not under your shoulders. When you're on your back and you have a ball between the knees or a block, you'll go side to side. And then take some time to get a feel. Where do you want to be on your bolster? Do you want to be a little forward with your hips towards the other side? So that when you tilt your legs side to side, you feel that circulation through the back of the waist into the hip. So let your head be on support for this. You know, even if you like to be minimal about your props, have something under your head so that it's very soft. The blankie is good. And then let the legs really go over. Feel if you've got something between them. You kind of take a little more of a gamble, and you can cross the leg over to the side. Feel the stretch in the waistband and the armpit chest. I feel most all of it in my leg, my hip. Haven't quite found that armpit chest stretch yet. Okay, now next time you go back into the center, okay, you're going to adjust for a moment with the ball idea. So lift up the feet so the legs are straight up. Squeeze inwards, squeeze. So you can feel the totality of circulation through the legs. Okay, and bend through the legs, remove the ball, and let's simply add sand to the soles of the feet. So we'll bring our sandbag across, and it might take you a few moments to get all of your clothing function working properly for you're calm and collected. And then when you scoop up the sand under the bottoms of the feet, just get that feel of that lift up of the legs and that flexion. And where the back muscles, they may not even be feeling like they're really tilted. For some of you that have done this for so long, you just feel like it's just comfortable to have a bolster under your tailbone. But it is under the tail, so that creates that smooth length in your lower back. Just opens it up. Oh no. So now the diaphragmatic breathing becomes inverted, right? So you have to work against gravity with your heart, your lungs, to let it function. So it may not feel that it's a big difference for you with your breathing, but you'll notice it rests the organs, right? Your organs aren't under that prolapse, downward pull. Stretch the elbows wide. See if you can find that cactus position for the arms. And then as you inhale, fill the belly. Exhale, let it go. Your feet can be flexed or neutral if you don't want to put energy into pushing them in any direction. Either is fine. Sometimes not spending energy on it works great. That's kind of the goal, isn't it? And then feel where you get your spine all the way into the back of the brain, really solid. So you almost feel like the brain stem area is long and supported. I like the blanket for this version. You might need to scoot the blanket back or a little bit down towards your shoulders. It's very individual, what will feel comfortable. Okay, so fine tune the belly breathing. So less breathing tight up into your upper ribs and more work on the belly movement with the inhale. And then with the exhale, feel it flow back. It does flow. It's a nice fluid motion. The breath moves really through the tissues like a fish swimming right through water. So that's kind of the movement of breath. This kind of flows through. What a good moment. You can feel how the back legs have opened up a little bit from this perspective. Okay, it's different than when we had the ball between the legs, right? And that's not going to flush the legs, but it will certainly work on the lymph. Right, so it's nice to do that before we do this drainage, right? Have the ball between, squeeze, and then activate those inner drainages, right? Tunnels in the legs, the groins. So now when you do move your knees to bending, we're going to try to work on finding ease through the back complex and openness in the front. So movement. So you're going to bend the knees and then move your sand, or just drop it or carefully move it back. And then let's take the ball back into the inside of the knees and let the knees go side to side and go a little slower. So you kind of push over to the one side, and it doesn't necessarily feel in your hip anymore likely. It could be, might not be. Okay, give it a couple times total, so it's really slow, 2 on each side. Avoid sitting in the middle with it. Try to let your body sway it to side to side. So simple. Now when you come back to center, we're going to bring the knees in towards the chest and then push the bolster forward. One thing I want to let you know that you're going to need in a little bit is your blocks. So if you've got them somewhere kind of away from you, this would be a good time to make sure you have them nearby, your 2 blocks. Okay, so feet on bolster, ball between knees. Now, can you lift up your hips without the focus of squeezing the ball? I mean, I know there's a little bit of emitted force of pushing, so you don't lose it, but see if you can do as little of that squeezing as possible, still holding the ball. It's easier with a ball than a block because you do have to put force into that block. It's heavier too. So lift up your hips, give them some help if you need to put your hands on the sides, and just give them that kind persuading that motion that they're lifting, and then guide your arms straight back overhead and lower your spine down. Okay, now you have the ball still, the spine lengthens down. Okay, keep the arms back overhead. If the feet are on a good spot on the bolster, establish a good spot so you feel connected under your feet, push down, and then feel the spine kind of scoop and lift up the hips. Feel that direct reach of the front of the hip bones towards the ceiling. And then lower the arms this time down by the sides and feel the length through the back line. And then the weight of the pelvis. So that's the part that I want you to notice, is how there is still this collected weight of the pelvis to get the spine straight down. So we're going to move the ball, and I want you to have a belt connecting your legs. So if you already have it in a loop and you didn't unbuckle it, just keep that loop, bring your knees to your chest, scoop up the belt in your legs and around your feet and then around the legs. Tighten it down so the belt is connected and pretty gripped, right? At the base of the upper leg towards the knee. Okay, so towards the knee with the belt, the knees. And then get your hips up and take 2 blocks under the back of the pelvis so the blocks are at their mid to low height, right? They could be low if that feels better for you, mid height, possibly, and slide them in besides each other so they point downwards, okay? So you got your blocks in, and they're not all the way up at the ribs. If they were at the ribs, that's too far up. So you want to kind of notice, these are your ribs, this is your thoracic spine right behind the ribs, so you know that's thoracic. That's the exact area they are, where they start and go up. But you might feel, oh, okay, I'm around my pelvis. That's a good spot to feel. The block might be a little bit above the pelvis, but you want to feel like that's supported. And then push your feet a little bit wider and make sure that this whole front hip zone is balancing. And then if your elbows can be by your sides, kind of like robot arms, you can let the legs flow down. They just kind of flow. I like to push my bolster a little farther down with my feet. And then I have this support of my lower legs, the calves. Yeah. So let the legs kind of separate. If the feet turn out, that's okay. If you can't stand that the legs are so separate, you can always bring your knees in and tighten the belt down and try there. You might feel better. But this hip zone open. So our final spinal today is we're going to keep the front of the hips open for about a minute here. And then we're going to cross over the slat of the hip to the side and back. So I want you to get a feel of maybe your feet kind of flex. Maybe it feels good for you to just let them be neutral. The arms are down. If you like to have them open, that's fine. And let your head center so the chin is slightly down. And the breath is slow. Feel the strong movement of the belly. And the centering down of the back onto the blocks. Gently open the chest. Now, let the energy be in the very front of the hips, right? There's obviously a little bit of a promotion that occurs with the blocks there behind you. So just kind of imagine that area still kind of has an openness at the front of the hip bones. And then you might need to bring your hands around the ribs so none of this area collapses. Kind of hold it steady, and then slide the feet so the knees point up. If you had them bent the whole time, then we meet you there. And then you'll push into your feet. Now, try to push so that when you lift up your hip bones, there's a lift, and then you slide the blocks away and lower the spine slowly. Really kind of milk it so that you're getting some massage through the back. It's slow. The slower you go, the better for your back here. So you're requiring a balance of strength and length in the back. The feet require the strength input, right? They push. So that's why walking's so good for us, right? That pushing and that vibration up into the spine. Now, once you're on the spine, well, actually you're on your back muscles, just simply bring your knees to your chest and unbuckle, and then take the legs so that you're going to feature trying to get your bolster over to the right side with your feet. You kind of have to do a little bit of dancing with your feet to move the bolster to the right. You might twinkle your toes a bit here just to kind of get yourself in the zone. Knees maybe a little to the chest to start off, so your back is scooped. And then lower the right leg and cross the left leg to the bolster. Get a ball to the sacrum here, and then a sandbag to the outer left leg. You choose though. If you don't want to put your sandbag to the outer leg, if you don't know where it is, it might be overhead. It's usually a place you can't see it. Even if you had eyes in the back of your head, right? But you have your sand support, and so that anchor is the ball. It's like a nice little balance. And that crossover of the fibers of the hip, left arm open. Yeah. It's been a couple classes since we did this one. So it feels kind of nice to extend from your hip and think of it as all these muscles in the hip. But simplify, it's just a branch out of the back of your pelvis, through the leg, flows all the way out to the right, and opening the connector of the frontal spine, chest open. Head rolls to the left, blanket under your head, closing your eyes. Now feel if there is a portion of the leg that is not really able to release. It feels a lot of heat and a lot of grip. And get a feel if you can let that left leg maybe slide a little downwards. So it's not that you need to hook the leg and get it as high over to the right. Sometimes you push the bolster a little bit down. Maybe you have to reset your sand a little bit. Maybe you don't use sand. And then measure how the sand was in your mind. Like, where did you have the force of movement in the joint to get here on this one side? And just doing the best you can to mirror that on the second. I know your second side could feel different, but once you move the sand away here and the ball, this would be a good time to kind of feel, oh, this is exactly how this side angled. You know, do it in your muscle memory, not looking at your exact angle. It's the feeling that's important. And then when I bend the left knee towards my chest, I come around in my back pelvis, walk the feet in towards the seat, take the bolster over to the left, and then you might have to move your body a little farther to the right side of the mat, and then anchor your left leg down, cross the right leg over, or something like that. But when you cross over, maybe you have a different twist to it on the second side. That's probably habits that you form that are some really good to do in yoga, and some you're doing because something's not quite measured up on the second side for you. And that would be something to notice, right? If you have a twist in your back, or it's not balanced, just to be careful to work on balancing. Because even as we mature, right, we can have a little bit of softness in some parts, and then it changes our alignment. So we're best to keep as aligned as we can. So stand on the exterior right leg if you like. Right arm open, head turns to the right. And let that weight of the sandbag settle on the muscles of the leg. Yeah, feel where does that balance you? And your head rolls a little bit to the right. Feel a different part of your brain that you touch onto with your head. Finally, where the rotation is in your waistband, we're going to let that just be a very solid center with support. So let your hands move the ball, if that's there, the sandbag. And then when you feel that rocking of the leg over to the left side, can you move your hands to that leg and help it back center? And then hold on to the knees and or the back of the knees, and then roll up and take a block set so you get right back to relief. 2 blocks mid-height, bolster on top. Don't get too perfect about it. Just kind of stack them up. See if you can do that. Just let them stack up. Get a blanket on top. If you're a little bit chilly, then what you might offer is some socks on your feet if you already have those. And then you could swaddle, right? You could take the blanket around the legs. This is nice to do. Good time of year for some swaddling. And then head on the blanket and sand either on the shins or sand across the ribs, just across. So you have that diaphragm dome that you're working with, kind of this vessel, this area. So I sometimes put it a little bit down so it's like right launched on the very top of my frontal hip bones. That sometimes feels kind of nice. So it feels like it's kind of a belly band, belly sand. Some like it higher. Lower the arms, relax your eyes, and if you have specs on it, they should be off. So you got no hardware on your face. And then as the breath back moves forward, right? So as you inhale, you feel the back band of the waist push a little bit up and towards the sand or just the belly. And then as you exhale, letting go. Alternate the movement of the belly with the breath. And just feel where the weight of the back muscles, if you do even feel like there's different spots of weight, you're trying to find that it's like a whole body, it's wholeness. And there's a breath right in the center that radiates outwards. So you get good circulation through your body. Now let your head roll from side to side. Feel the back of your head. Now see if you can feel when your head does gently roll, just a very small amount. If your neck on that opposite side where your head goes, let's say to the left, you'll feel the right side. And maybe you don't feel a lot of neck stretch, but We do recognize this is helpful for loosening up tension. Just be on your back, letting your head nod. Let all of its body weight be on the floor. The whole brain, all its weight. Rolling brain. And then come back in the center with a still brain. That's not always still as far as its energy, but sensing the weight of it specifically is heavy. Oh, good. And then moving the sand away. Get a feel of maybe your feet circling, or perhaps you like to bring your knees into your chest right away. Whatever seems to be natural for you in this very moment. Let the spine lengthen from the actual upper body and through the neck down through the spine. It's all connected. And then a super deep breath into your lungs. Feel the resistance with the legs into the lungs here. Exhale, smooth. Now you'll roll to a side. Any side will do. You want to roll just to simply and then come up so that you are able to sit up and find that balance of your seat on maybe something, maybe nothing, but cross the legs. And as you feel the crossing that's right for you, have a sense of lift through the spine up into the back brain, and then feel the mind tilt down towards the heart, and the hands lift up. Either center the hands together in front of the heart or let the hands cross over the heart. Take a moment here to feel the collective awareness of your practice today and feel the circulation that comes from it. And supporting yourself and others. Inhale and exhale, bowing into your heart. In gratitude, namaste.